everybody. Today I am going to show you how to do several different types of distressed wood looks on different surfaces, on already distressed wood, regular wood, and canvas. Some of the tools that I'm going to be using for this are acrylic paint. I have rose gold, metallic gold, pearlescent white, dark titanium white, burnt umber, and Mars black. I have some sandpaper or sandpaper blocks, claw hammer, files or scraping tools, natural sponges or even old bath loofahs will work for this, palette knives, sharp tools, popsicle sticks, cardboard, scissors, some stenciling or bristle brushes, and here I have a little paint stirrer. Of course, I have some paper towels and water to help keep things nice and tidy. Now, distressed wood by definition is wood that appears old. It could be treated, stained, or not treated. It has a rough surface to it. Sometimes you'll have incised or lowered marks on the wood itself. And when you put the paint on, it looks like it's had several coats of paint and some of the top coats have come off. If you want to distress your wood, you can use several different methods. You can sand it to soften up the wood. You can also add some beautiful hammer marks by smashing into your wood. You can use the claw part to help dent your wood, make it look old, like it's been around for a while. You can claw into your wood using files or gouges. You can use the files to help pull the wood up. You just want to beat the heck out of this wood. Really make it look like it's been around for a while. You want to give it some texture. You really want to texturize the surface of the wood. Don't be gentle with it. You want to get nice and rough. You want to see little splinters flying off of there. See how that's starting to pick up those little pieces of wood there? Let's really scratch it up some. Give it some nice stab wounds. Maybe there was a hole in it. Somebody was nailing into it. Give it some character. This piece of wood's been around for a while. It's seen some things. Not too bad. So now we're starting to look a little bit more like distressed wood, and you can just keep on playing with that as much as you like. All right, let's talk about the painting process for this. For painting distressed wood, you want to have a minimum of 3 different colors. You want to have a base tone, which can be in a dark to mid range. You want to have a shadow tone, which is darker, and a highlight, which is lighter. So I'm going to demonstrate some of these. Oh, let's do it on this one. For my mid-tone, I want to mix up a gray. So I'm going to take one of my palette knives, clean it off a little bit. I'm going to take some of my dark titanium white, which is just unbleached titanium white. It already has this beautiful kind of gray color to it already. I want to warm it up a little bit more, so I'm adding a bit of my rose and a bit of my burnt umber over here. Just a smidge of my black. Mix that up, and that should give me a nice warm gray. There we go, in a nice mid-tone range. So this is going to be my base color. So that's my base color, and I'm going to apply this to my piece of wood. First, I'm going to use the palette knife to just kind of scrape some of it on there. You scrape it up and you just apply some of that this way. And you see how that's texturing it already? By using the edge of the palette knife, when you scrape this on, some of that beautiful tone of the wood is going to show through. And some people, this is all the look they want. They want to just stop here, and that's fine. Notice I'm only going in one direction, and I'm using the palette knife to scrape and pick up some of the paint. I'm going to flip around this way so I can get off on this edge. There you go. So already you can see this beautiful, I'm getting the light over here so you can really see it. You can get this beautiful two-tone effect just by using the palette knife. Clean that palette knife off a little bit. Now say I want to darken this in a little bit and get a second tone. Even while it's wet, I can come in here, get a little bit of a darker brown on my palette knife, and just start to spread that on. I can go in two different directions. I don't want to apply too much. And look at that. Already we look like we got a piece of plank of wood from an old barn. It's gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful. Now that's just two tones of paint, my mid-tone and my shadow tone. Now if I want to add some highlights, I can do the same thing. I can take my palette knife. I'm going to take a little bit of my pearlescent white, which is going to give me a beautiful sheen here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start scraping and scratching some of this in. And all those nice gouges and holes that we made are going to start to fill up with this paint. Hold on, got an itch. There we go. I hope I don't have paint on my nose now. No big deal if I do. Can't be an artist without being covered in paint at some point. Oh, that is just beautiful. Can you see the shimmer on this now? I love this. So instantly with just one tool on a flat surface like this piece of wood that we've been painting on here, we have this gorgeous three-tone effect with just one tool, the palette knife. Now, if you don't have a painter's palette knife, you can make one. You can use a popsicle stick and just use the edge of that. You can break it into a smaller piece, either by breaking it with your fingers, or you can use a scissor to cut it if you want to be a little bit more accurate. Just make sure it's not a good pair of fabric scissors. Whee! There we go. So you can do the same thing with this. I'll show you how we would do that here on my canvas. So I'm going to start adding a mid-tone so that I have some color on here to demo with. And I'm just letting my colors bleed together. Using my popsicle stick. And you get just the same effect. It's going to be a little messier because the paint's going to be closer to your fingers, and you may get some of these grooves here, so you just have to kind of scrape it off and move along like that. Popsicle stick works just as well. Now another really cool thing that you can do is create your own painting cards with cardboard like this. So you can use this to stamp with. Pick up some of your paint, and that'll work just as well. That gives you a little bit longer handle than the popsicle stick method. Now, one of the cool things that you can do with this method is you can do designs. I'm going to cut out little triangles out of this. And what that's going to do is it's going to give me almost like stripes. See how I've cut that out? Call that a comb. I'm going to add some of my pearlescent red, or my rose red with my pearlescent white here. And you see how that creates stripes in it? So you can get this nice banded effect. And what that can do, that can help your canvas, if you want your canvas to look a little bit more like wood. This will help it look like grain. You know how wood has those long, beautiful grains? It's going to mimic that. Let's see if I can get some of my base tone back here in these corners. My corners look naked. We don't want naked corners. There we go. That's a little better. comb that through. And so that looks like distressed wood. And you can keep adding different layers to get the effect that you are going for. Now let me show you another method for doing this, using the paint brushes and sponges. All right, for this, I'm going to create another base tone. Whoop, I'm running out of gray. Nope, that's my iridescent. Let's pull out some of our, there it is, our unbleached titanium white. And these are bristle brushes. You can also find them labeled as stencil brushes. They're a lot stiffer than your standard paint brushes because they're made out of horse bristle or pig bristle. Mixing up some mid-tone with my non-bleached dark titanium. I'm going to use this to spread it. And you'll notice that this untreated wood, it soaks the paint up really quickly. It's just darkening in that wood tone just a little bit. Not much, but just a little bit. Now, if you're working on wood that has grooves or raised areas and you want to accentuate those areas, I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to try and accentuate the grooves here using a shadow. So I'm going to take one of my short bristle brushes. I'm going to make a shadow tone, mixing my black, my Mars Black and my burnt umber. And I'm going to come in here and I put my paintbrush right down into that groove and just work it back and forth, back and forth. And it's okay if some of the paint comes up out of the groove, but you see how instantly that groove stands out so much more now. It makes it look so much deeper. You can do this around raised areas. You can take this and get your darken thing, and just say there's a leaf here. I'm just pretending. You go around the base with your shadow tone and then put a highlight color on top of your raised leaf, and it's going to make that leaf look three-dimensional, even more three-dimensional than it already is in real life. So you just put a subtle shadow around. I'm pretending this is a raised leaf. It's going to look like a knot in the wood. That's okay. Make it look like a knot in the wood. And then I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight color in the middle, so I'm going to take some of my iridescent white. Put that in there. And you see how the contrast, it's the contrast that you want to see. By contrasting darks with lights, you're going to get the illusion of depth. So instantly it looks like I have a nice little knot into my wood, even though there isn't one there. So you can also take this skinny brush with your shadow color, which is my dark brown and my black, and just add in these little distressed areas. You don't want them to be too even. They shouldn't all be the same length or the same size or the same whatever. You want them to be kind of organic and natural looking. Start putting those in. And then you can take, this is the shadow brush, I'm taking my mid-tone brush and I can use that to kind of fade and blend those in if they look a little too stark, a little too much contrast. Just kind of fade those in. And just really nice. So I'm working with 3 brushes at the same time. I'm working with a shadow brush, my mid-tone brush, and my highlight brush. That way I don't have to clean my brushes in between, and I'll often be holding all 3 at the exact same time. And now I'm going to go in with my highlight color and start adding in some of that top note iridescence. My iridescent pearl and my gold, my metallic gold. Now this method is a little slower. It allows me to have a lot more control over the look. So I can make it look however I want. Another method, I think I have enough down here, is to use a natural sponge. This is a natural sea sponge. You can use some that you would use in the bathtub. You can even use an artificial sponge, like a, you know, like those plastic loofahs that you buy to use with body wash. You want to make sure you wet your sponge. Shouldn't be sopping wet, but it should be damp. And you tap into your paint, and make sure you tap off on the edge of the palette so that the whole thing is not completely covered. You want to just have it on the tips. And you can use this to tap and drag the color onto the wood. This is good for larger areas. I use this method more if I'm working on murals than if I'm working on something small like this. Get a little bit more of our base tone down so you can see. You notice how I'm just like pooling all my colors together. I'm not letting them stay separate. Let whatever's gonna happen, happen. Pull up some of that gold. And you see that covers a lot more of the area quickly, but I'm not as precise as I am if I'm using the brushes. So you can use a combination of the two. I can now go back in here and start to accentuate my grooves. I can accentuate knots in the wood. You have raised or lowered areas. If you have a design in the wood, go around it and shadow in those spots. You can be as subtle or as bold as you want. Let's put another knot right in here. That looks nice. I like that. Yeah. So the goal here is to have contrast. You want to have contrast between your highlights and your shadows so that your wood is interesting to look at, or your canvas, whatever you're working on. There we go. All right, for the last two methods I'm going to demonstrate, I'm going to separate off my board so that you can see what I've done over here. So in the upper left-hand corner, we did the paintbrush technique. In the lower left-hand corner here, we did the cardboard carding technique. In the upper right corner here, we have the sponging technique. And in the lower right corner, we have the palette knife technique. So the last two I'm going to show you is paintbrush daubing and sandpaper. For both of these, I've applied a medium tone of paint down on the wood and allowed it to dry. For the sandpaper technique, you can put a light coat with a dark coat on top, or a dark coat with a light coat on top, but you must wait for these to dry before you add the next layer. Now, just like the name describes, once it's dry, you just take your sandpaper and sandpaper up some of that paint, and you should start to see the lighter colors underneath. You can also do this with any kind of wooden tool. You can use a toothpick. You can use metal tools. You can use your palette knife if you have a metal palette knife. But you'll notice that it's starting to pick up those layers of paint underneath so that you can see the paint through it. Now, this doesn't have as much control as some of the other ones, and you won't get quite as much contrast. So it's not the most favored method, but I wanted to at least show it to you since it's an option. So with paint daubing, again, we're going to be using our bristle brushes. And if you have a dark tone, you want to daub with light, and then I'm going to show you the opposite. So daubing is just tapping, and these are stencil brushes. They're made to be tapped and scraped just like this. And this will give you a little bit more control than some of the other methods. So this kind of shows you light on top of dark. And here I'm going to show you dark on top of light or mid-tone. Switch to another brush here. This gives it a smokier, burnt look. And these brushes are meant to be tapped like this. You can be rough with them. These bristles should be really stiff and rough. They're meant to take this kind of abuse. Regular paintbrushes, this would kill them. Don't be afraid of your bristle brushes. There we have it. And I'm going to keep sanding at this piece. Sorry about the squeaking. And I'll get a nice close-up shot of all of these labeled so that you can see all of the different methods for painting distressed wood. Okay, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.